Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théâtres, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur, sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte.
52. That's how many vacant ambassadorships there currently are in the United States. That is because the Trump administration has only confirmed 66% of its nominees so far, more than 2 years into the presidency. It's half over, and we still haven't got all of these ambassadors. This is contrast that, by the way, with President Clinton, who was at 96% at this point. Bush was at 84%. Obama was at 89%. Donald Trump, 66% of his confirmations at this stage in his term. There are reasons that confirmations have been lagging lately. Since the 1950s, roughly 2/3 of ambassadors have been career Foreign Service officials. About a third have been appointees. Not so for the Trump administration. Of its confirmed appointees, it's an even split. 50% are career Foreign Service diplomats, 50% are political appointees, according to the American Foreign Service Association. And the qualifications of many of the political appointees who have not yet been confirmed but have donated big bucks to the Trump inaugural committee are now coming into question. Here are just a few. The president's pick for the ambassador to the Bahamas, Doug Manchester, incorrectly told Congress that the Bahamas was part of the United States. It's an independent country. But he did donate $1 million to Trump's inaugural committee. Trump's pick for ambassador to the United Arab Emirates, an important job, is a wealthy real estate developer with zero diplomatic experience. Keep in mind, this is not the Bahamas. This role was given by every single previous president to a career diplomat because of tensions in the Middle East. But John Rakolta did donate $250,000 to Trump's inaugural committee. The nominee for Morocco, that guy, David T. Fisher, he's a well-heeled car dealer. He also donated $250,000 to Trump's inaugural committee. And Trump's ambassador pick to the First Lady's native country of Slovenia, he nominated the founder of an evangelical charity, Linda Blanchard, who's known to have shared false, far-right social media posts on her Facebook page. Her husband donated $553,500 to Donald Trump's inaugural committee. There are plenty more, by the way, where that came from. Head to NBCnews.com to read the entire list of Trump inaugural committee biggest donors who have been nominated to represent our country on the world stage, who have no diplomatic experience whatsoever. And let's not forget, the very same inaugural committee is currently under federal investigation. All right, joining us now is the man behind all of this research, Ryan Scoville. Ryan, I'm going to hand it over to my friend Stephanie Ruhle, because she does make the point that while the proportions are higher in this administration, political appointees do become ambassadors.
I'm pretty sure you just made it, Allie. So
I feel like you felt more strongly.
I do. Walk us through this, because why is this significant? Because to that exact point, last I checked, ambassadors across the board, historically, there's a whole lot of rich donors who end up as ambassadors, and that happened long before President Trump was in office.
That's true. As you mentioned, ever since the Truman administration, we've had a ratio of approximately 2/3 political appointee, or 2/3 career appointees to 1/3 the political type. So it's a long-standing tradition. The reason why it's argued that it's problematic is that these individuals who are political nominees are typically underqualified in a variety of different ways. They're more likely to lack language abilities that are relevant to the receiving state. They're more likely to lack experience in that state, lack knowledge about the state, lack knowledge about the region in which it's located. They're also more likely to lack organizational leadership experience and even experience in foreign policy in general.
But what's
new is that under the Trump administration, what's new is that a lot of these tendencies have become even more more significant. They've exacerbated in some ways. That is, if we were to compare the average political nominee under the Reagan administration, for example, to the average political nominee under Trump, the Trump nominee is inferior to the Reagan nominee in a number of different ways, even though we're comparing apples to apples here. That is, we're not comparing Reagan career nominees to Trump political nominees. Even looking at the Reagan political nominees, Trump's political nominees are less qualified in a variety of different ways.
But what about Obama versus, right? Like Reagan, Trump, that's a whole lot of years between the two. What about Obama and Trump?
Even comparing Obama and Trump, there's been a drop-off with Trump. And that's not a categorical drop-off. So, for example, the language abilities between the two different sets of nominees are comparable across Obama and Trump. But in terms of foreign policy experience, regional experience, and I think organizational leadership as well, the Trump nominees are inferior.
Let me ask you about this. I've had people from other countries tell me that with Donald Trump in particular, different from Obama, different from Bush, different from Clinton, different from Reagan, all those things you listed that an ambassador should have are less important than whether or not that ambassador either speaks for or has the ear of the President of the United States.
Right, that argument is commonly made, and I don't purport to offer a holistic evaluation as to whether or not any individual nominee is optimal. In fact, there are a variety of criteria that are really difficult to quantify. Characteristics like reliability, knowledge, relationship with the president, capacity to negotiate. These are things that are sort of beyond my own research, and so I don't purport to offer any conclusions on those sorts of characteristics. My analysis is more limited to the objective, quantifiable, experiential characteristics such as experience in the region.
It is Thursday, the 4th of April of 2019, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam, and our daily special is Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays. A little bit of jambalaya, a little bit of spice in your life. Hey, we might as well celebrate New Orleans while we still have it. It looks like we might not have it for very long if these glaciers keep calving apart and filling up the oceans higher than they should be. Well, define should be. What is that quantifiable marker? Does it really include the human race? Probably not. We always think the end of the world means when maybe the sun turns into a red giant, we get consumed in solar fire. No, the end of the world for us is when the human race is no longer the dominant species. The earth will endure. Well, at least until the sun becomes a red giant and consumes it in solar flare fire. All right. On the other hand, maybe the pressure of the sun would push the earth into an outer orbit. Maybe it would push it out of the orbit it's in now, past the asteroid belt. I don't know. Maybe we might get captured by one of the gas giants that then becomes a new sun. That could happen. At least in my science fiction story. Speaking of science fiction stories, at the top was a rundown about 52 unfilled ambassadorial positions, and the nominees for those have such low IQs and are right-wing lunatics. Because if you're going to deconstruct the administrative state, that's the best way to do it. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. It's the know-nothings again. Look that up, and it will make things a lot more clear, indeed. I had a little bit of a discussion with my Trump bro, as I mentioned yesterday, and I stand corrected. And that is the term snowflake. It seems reasonable, especially after seeing Schindler's List, that Nazis might have referred to the incinerated remains of the Jews from the death camps floating down on the countryside. It seemed reasonable that the Nazis would refer to that as snowflakes in a derisive manner. And so when the right-wing MAGA Trump bro Nazis invoke the term snowflake, there's a visceral sort of reaction to that. But I stand corrected. There is no evidence anywhere that the Nazis ever used the term snowflake in a derisive term, as just described. Now, the term snowflake does have a derisive meaning, and the first reported and recorded derisive meaning of the term snowflake was directed to the anti-abolitionists back before the Civil War. They were called snowflakes because they preferred white people over blacks gaining equality. Thus, the term snowflake. And it has been adopted by the right-wing Trump bro MAGA hat Nazis as their go-to term to insult anybody who's incapable of taking an insult. And I got to tell you, the projection is so amazing there because the biggest snowflakes, if you go by their definition, are MAGA hat Trump bro Nazis. You can't say diddly without those people getting a little peeved. Little peeved. I mean, to the point when you make a joke about Trump claiming that his dad was born in Germany when he was really born in New York, right? And they get mad at you for like, why does it matter? And then you bring up the fact that for 8 years, I had to hear from the right wing and Trump and all these other idiots about Obama not being an American. They were all birthers. And so pointing out in a jocular way the utter hypocrisy of it, and I cannot tell you, really I cannot describe to you the vitriol that was directed just from that. Talk about triggered snowflakes. Okay. But the right-wing MAGA hat Trump bro Nazis have adopted the term snowflake, which in its original form was directed at racists. And they've adopted it to their own devilish means, sort of like how the swastika was adopted from the religion of ISIS. Not the murderous terrorists. I'm talking about the goddess. Oh, yeah, that ISIS. The one of love and peace. That's right. Changed it around to an exact opposite meaning. That's what Newspeak is, and exactly what Goebbels said you would have to do to bring a few people along. And they do. All right, what's on the rest of the menu here in the Bistro Cafe part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy? Hey, when you're like the chef owner, you have a certain allowances allotted to you. And one of those is, well, a little jocular rant. Well, we hope it's jocular. Well, the House Appropriations Committee mocked the Secretary of Commerce's reason for refusing to testify. Hey, Wilbur. And apparently Wilbur has still not shown up to the hearing room. Get the sergeant at arms over there and haul his ass into the hearing. God, are you kidding me? I don't know. Should I tell you the reason that Wilbur's not going to come? Nah, we'll wait until I'll tell you the story. But it's a good one. It's a really good one. The House Intelligence Committee is looking into a friend of Melania Trump who made $1.6 million off the inauguration. The largest inauguration fund in the history of inauguration funds. And I got to tell you, they didn't have the top talent or the amount of people actually in the audience. And they had a lot less voting, too. 3 million. And the indicted North Carolina GOP chair refuses to resign after bribery charges. Well, of course not. They're crooks. And you got a mob boss in the presidency right now. Is he quitting? After the break, we then move to the chef's table, where nearly a dozen prominent Saudi women activists have returned to court to face charges related to contacts with foreign journalists, diplomats, and human rights groups. You silly women. You got all the women in our country behind the wheel of a car, and now you're going to suffer. And in an address to Congress, the head of NATO warned of the military, counter-intel, and cyber threats posed by a more assertive Russia. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. Do understand the efficacy of avoiding political conversations among family. Sometimes it's the only way to keep family together is to avoid those conversations that are so divisive that there can be no common ground, except the common ground of not ever bringing the subject up. That being stated, my brother, my Trump bro, did call yesterday sometime after the show to query about the tete-a-tete that occurred on my Facebook page, my timeline. When he came onto my timeline and said he didn't want to talk politics and proceeded to talk politics and get pissed off because I and others kept talking about politics on my timeline. And it turned out that he was a bit confused about what a news feed is and what a timeline is. And I don't know, I guess he thought I was going to his page and posting things on his page because it came up on his news feed. So I had to explain to him that it's like, you know, the scroll on Times Square. It's like turning on the TV and, you know, the little cryon at the bottom and you get these little tidbits of news. And I think that he understood. But that was good to clear the air. Maybe we should just avoid those conversations entirely. Yeah, we could talk about fishing, but then if we did, it'd be even more divisive because he catches all the fish. How dare he? Damn him. All right, let's get on to what we usually do here in the show, and that's to remind you that at the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com, and even before you get to the bottom, you will notice that we are celebrating 8 years. 8 years of continuous broadcasting, 24/7, 365. That's usually what it means to be continuous, because we are really a powerhouse of resistance, aren't we now? All right, at the bottom of the homepage at netrootsradio.com, you will notice to the rightish of the page the chat room link monitored by Kelly Lincoln. Thank you, Kelly. To the leftish of the page is the contribute button. Please do become a recurring Patreon of Netroots Radio. If you could afford even just like maybe even espresso type coffee drink a month and send those funds our way, we are able to stretch these dollars so far that we have become masters of the stretch. Absolutely, and it's because of your generosity that we're able to do that. And we are even in more dire need, unfortunately. And your generosity keeps this powerhouse of resistance resisting as the founders originally intended. Not orange, originally. If you would like to follow Netroots Radio on Twitter, you can do so at Netroots Radio. Tom takes care of that. Thank you, Tom. And he does it rather pithily, too, by the way. Follow me on Twitter at Justice Putnam. I post the show notes and links diary on Daily Co's about 10 minutes before showtime, and then scramble to get the links up on social media. There was something happening with Daily Kos the last couple of days. It's fixed now, but you were able to and are once again able to share on multiple platforms, say on Facebook. If you have a page, you have your personal timeline, that sort of thing, you could share from that one button. And for last several days, that wasn't working. So I had to go to Facebook and share off the timeline. But they seem to have fixed that issue because it was working this morning on another share that I wanted to share. And I noticed I could share it over all the different pages. So that is good. All right. So there's that. That's fixed. If you would like to follow the show on Twitter, you can do so at Cookbook West. Pick up podcasts by way of Stitcher, Spreaker, TuneIn, iTunes, YouTube, iHeart, and wherever fine podcasts can be found. This first offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays is by David Badish, out of the New Civil Rights Movement. Secretary of Commerce Wilbur Ross has had a challenging time testifying before congressional committees. The 81-year-old multimillionaire, who once claimed to be a multi-billionaire, might best be known for wearing custom $600 velvet smoking slippers embroidered with his agency's logo to Trump's first address to a joint session of Congress in 2017. But he's also known for lying to Congress, which is a felony, punishable by fines and jail time. And let's not forget, Ross has also been accused of being a grifter in a multi-million-dollar lawsuit. He's been accused of failing to disclose his ties to Putin's cronies, including Putin's son-in-law. And he's also been accused of failing to divest his assets despite a written promise to do so, and on and on and on. And whether or not Ross is an actual billionaire, he does act like one might expect those removed from what average Americans face. During Trump's most recent shutdown of the federal government, Ross infamously appeared on CNBC and declared, "I don't quite understand why furloughed unpaid federal workers were forced to resort to feeding their families via food banks." Yeah, because all he had to do was tell one of his assistants to make him a sandwich. Well, on Wednesday, that would be yesterday, in a lengthy letter to the House Appropriations Committee, Secretary Ross detailed his reasons for refusing to testify before them. The Commerce Secretary is apparently under the mistaken impression that appearing is optional, like whether or not to wear $625 velvet smoking slippers, assuming one can afford them. Well, Ross writes in part, "My appearance at this time would unfortunately distract from the department's important business before the subcommittee." Well, you would expect that would not be an acceptable response. As committee chairman, Representative Jose Serrano, Democrat of New York, made clear, the secretary's decision flies in the face of transparency, good governance, and the traditions that ensure accountability within the appropriations process. Well, the committee decided to up its game, taking the battle to social media, where it delivered a 1-2 punch mocking the Secretary of Commerce. Responding to Ross's claim that his appearance would unfortunately distract from the department's important business before the subcommittee, the Democratic majority on the committee wrote that basically appearing before Congress is his job. That's why he's the Secretary of Commerce, not another Secretary of Obstruction. Oliver Willis of Share Blue Media brings us this next offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I just want to say off the top that Melania Trump is a birther, and she's as corrupt and, well, evil as all the rest of them. And I really don't have any part in any part of me that wants to give her any leeway just because she's the First Lady. Congress wants answers about Trump's shady inaugural committee from Melania Trump's close friend and advisor, who profited handsomely off of it. Well, they've requested documents from Stephanie Winston Wolkoff, a close friend of Melania, who personally earned a reported $1.6 million from Trump's inauguration. It's the latest in a series of official inquiries into Trump's shady inaugural committee, which raked in unusually large amounts of money for an unusually low-scale inaugural celebration. Come on, they couldn't even get 3 doors down. Jeez. Wolkoff described in a Town and Country profile. There's some real big investigative journalism coming out of Town and Country. As a New York social fixture, event planner, and former Vogue staffer. And she was hired as an informal advisor to Melania shortly after Donnie's inauguration. Oh, really? But she lost that job shortly after reports emerged that she was also one of the top contractors working on Trump's inauguration and that she pulled in eye-popping profits from doing so. The company Wolkoff formed a mere 6 weeks before the event was paid, wait for it, paid $25.8 million, almost $30 million by the committee, and Wolkoff herself brought in $1.62 million. And the Trump inauguration is under criminal investigation by the U.S. Attorney in Manhattan. Investigators are concerned about the $107 million the fund brought in from top Trump donors and whether those funds were misused. The inaugural committee spent at least twice as much as the amount raised for any of the inaugurations of Obama and GW. The D.C. Attorney General is specifically investigating which monies went to Trump's D.C.-based hotels. An investigation by ProPublica and WNYC turned up emails and other documents that implicate Ivanka in a scheme to overcharge the inaugural committee for the hotel space, thereby enriching her family. For over 2 years, these questionable financial arrangements and actions were effectively ignored by Republicans in Congress. Because I got to tell you, if you're washing $107 mil through some sort of money laundering operation, like giving an event planner $28 mil, and you're a Republican in Congress and the Senate, and really a lot of your campaign funds are laundered rubles, you might not want a really thorough investigation, now would you? Just a tad into our normal break period, but that's okay. We're a salon. Dan Desai Martin, also of Share Blue Media, brings us this final offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. A day after he was indicted on federal charges of bribery and corruption. Former Congressman and current North Carolina Republican Party Chair Robin Hayes is refusing to step down from his position in the party. A defiant Hayes announced yesterday in a statement he would merely hand over day-to-day responsibilities to someone else, but he will remain head of the state's Republican Party. Hayes, who served in Congress from 1999 to 2009, claimed that keeping his leadership role was in the best interest of the party. Mostly people who are leading things think they are that thing they are leading. Well, the U.S. District Court for the Western District of North Carolina unsealed an indictment against Hayes, Greg Lindbergh, a Republican donor, and several other prominent Republicans on charges of bribery and wire fraud. The defendants are accused of trying to bribe North Carolina Insurance Commissioner Mike Casey to replace his deputy. It might be Mike Causey. And the scandal goes higher up, reaching into the halls of Congress. Representative Mark Walker, Repug of North Carolina, may have been involved in the scheme. While not charged with any crime at the moment, a political committee controlled by Walker, identified as Public Official A in court documents, received $150,000 from Lindbergh around the same time Lindbergh allegedly asked Walker to pressure Causey to replace his deputy. Documents released by the DOJ allege that one of Lindbergh's associates told others that Walker made multiple calls to Causey and was trying to help us move the ball forward. You would expect Walker to deny any wrongdoing when asked about this scandal. And even if he is not indicted, he could still face an investigation by the House Ethics Committee. Let's remind ourselves now the bribery scandal is only the most recent accusation of wrongdoing leveled at North Carolina repugs. And the term repug is in this reporter's opinion. Dan Desai Martin didn't write that in the Think Progress. State and federal investigators are looking into massive election fraud by congressional campaign of Republican Mark Harris and McCrae Dowless, the longtime GOP operative Harris hired for his campaign, was indicted in February after the North Carolina Board of Elections unanimously decided it could not certify the election results and called for a new election for the seat. Hayes announced the day before the indictment was unsealed that he would not seek re-election as the chair of the state's Republican Party. Republicans meet in June to select a new chair, one presumably not embroiled in one of the state's many scandals. So he's going to hold on to that chair for April, May, and then June. Okay. Don't ever give up. That's their motto. Don't ever apologize. Never admit wrongdoing. Let's go to our break and ponder that, all right? And when we come back from the break, you know we will be going through weather from around the world. And you also know that we're going to finish up with the stories that we have curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Take Two Movie Review. I'm Kim Lowe. This week, Jordan Peele, the new king of horror. Those expecting a sequel to Jordan Peele's hugely successful, darkly comic 2017 debut Get Out won't find it with his new one, Us. This one is darker and has fewer laughs, although the two movies do share a powerful message about the state of American society, namely the difference between the haves and the have-nots. Us tells the story of an affluent African-American family, with the leads played by Winston Duke and Lupita Nyong'o as they vacation in Santa Cruz. The latter's character, Adelaide, is hesitant about the trip because as a young girl, she had wandered into a nearby funhouse and encountered another girl who was her mirror image. The encounter was brief but life-changing. As she tells her husband about the encounter, flashbacks show the young Adelaide diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder, from which she never recovered. So when a strange family appears in the driveway of their vacation home and whose members resemble Adelaide's family, she believes it is connected to that childhood experience. To say anything more would move us into spoiler territory. Us shows that Peele is becoming a master at combining horror, dark humor, and social commentary, and he seems to be able to attract some of the best actors working today. In particular, Youngo is amazing in her dual roles. She has an expressive face and flexible body, and watching her play both Adelaide and her scary doppelganger is a feat to appreciate. Duke is somewhat underused in the goofy, aw-shucks dad role, but the child actors, especially Madison Curry as the young Adelaide, are amazing. While the conclusion may be puzzling, Us is nonetheless a solid entry in the genre and then some. At the very least, you'll never view red jumpsuits the same way again. This has been Take Two Movie Review. I'm Kim Lowe. Catch up with us at TakeTwoMovieReview.com and feed us back on our page on YouTube.
In the U.S., about 15% of people who have HIV don't know they have it. If you have it, the sooner you get diagnosed, the sooner you can start life-saving treatment. Everyone should get tested at least once, and those at high risk should get tested at least once a year. If you're pregnant or planning to get pregnant, get tested as soon as possible. Healthcare providers, conduct routine testing according to CDC's guidelines. Screen all youth and adults for HIV risk behaviors. Help patients understand their risk and the best prevention options. If people test positive, link them to treatment and prevention counseling quickly. HIV testing is important. Know your HIV status. See your healthcare provider to get tested or find a testing site at gettested.cdc.gov. You can also get a home testing kit online or from a drugstore. To learn more, visit cdc.gov/vital signs.
This program is presented by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
As the days get longer and the weather warms, people of all ages will start to spring into action. Spring is a great time to breathe fresh air, stretch your arms and legs, and get physically active outdoors. Lack of physical activity contributes to obesity, heart disease, stroke, and other chronic health conditions. Fortunately, many communities are making it easier and safer to be physically active. Neighborhoods across the country are working together to create more public spaces for walking, running, biking, and other physical activities. Adults should get at least 150 minutes of physical activity each week, and children should get 60 minutes a day. If you find it hard to walk to a local recreation center, park, or playground, learn how to make your neighborhood a place that makes healthy living easier. Visit makinghealtheasier.org for information about ways communities can change to get more people outside and moving.
For the most accurate health information, visit www.cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO.
This is a message from CDC.
After hurricanes, tornadoes, and floods, standing water and excess moisture help mold grow in your home, garage, and other structures. When you return to a home that has been flooded, know that you're likely to have mold. Mold puts your family's health at risk. If you have mold growing in your home, you should clean it up and fix other water problems, such as leaks in roofs, walls, or plumbing. Keep your children and pets out of affected areas until you've cleaned. Control moisture in your home to prevent mold growth. To remove mold growth from hard surfaces, use commercial products, soap and water, or a bleach solution of no more than 1 cup of household laundry bleach in 1 gallon of water. Follow the manufacturer's instructions. Never mix bleach with ammonia or other household cleaners. It will produce dangerous, toxic fumes. Open windows and doors to provide fresh air.
For more information, visit cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO.
Hi, it's Tom. Could we humbly suggest your donation to netrootsradio.com? All we've got to run this 24-hour powerhouse of progressive resistance radio is what comes out of our own wallets. And you are our biggest donor. And it doesn't take much, $3, $5. Just go to the bottom of our netrootsradio.com page and hit our secure donate button. Heck, you can even make a recurring contribution, and you'll get a wondiferous pair of Netroots radio stickers for application to your backpack, your bumper sticker, or your banjo. Well, it's up to you which backpack you want to put it on. So donate what you'd like at the bottom of our netrootsradio.com's homepage, because you are our biggest donor. netrootsradio.com. Together, we are Resistance Radio.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1968. This is a day of mourning. Today is the day an assassin's bullet murdered Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. as he was coming out of the Lorraine Motel in Memphis, Tennessee. Dr. King was in Memphis for a march to support striking sanitation workers. The workers were trying to gain union recognition and safe working conditions. The night before the scheduled march, Dr. King gave his final speech, one that will be long remembered. He urged participation by the congregants, telling them, quote, "Nothing would be more tragic than to stop at this point in Memphis. We've got to see this through," he said, "and when we have our march, you need to be there. If it means leaving work, if it means leaving school, be there. Be concerned about your brother. You may not be on strike, but either we go up together or we go down together." He then ended his speech with these prophetic words.
Well, I don't know what will happen now. We've got some difficult days ahead, but it really doesn't matter with me now because I've been to the mountaintop. I don't mind. Like anybody, I would like to live a long life. Longevity has its place, but I'm not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will. And he's allowed me to go up to the mountain. And I've looked over and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land.
Less than 24 hours later, Dr. King had given his life to the cause of civil rights and workers' rights.
The news today, oh boy.
It's time for Nicole Sandler's What's News from NicoleSandler.com and the Progressive Voices Network.
For Donald Trump, Wednesday was a terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day. First, the New York Times dropped the other shoe, reporting that some of Special Counsel Robert Mueller's investigators told associates that Attorney General William Barr failed to adequately portray the findings of their inquiry and that they were more troubling for Trump than Barr indicated.
New claims that members of the Special Counsel's team feel the public was misinformed by Attorney General William Barr's letter about their report. The New York Times reports that some of Mueller's investigators have told associates that Barr failed to adequately portray their findings, which government officials and others familiar with their frustrations say were more damaging for President Trump than indicated. While Barr says he needs time to make redactions, the Times reports that the Special Counsel's investigators had already written multiple summaries of the report, and some team members believe that Barr should have included more of their material in his 4-page letter. But government officials say the Justice Department determined that the summaries contain sensitive information like classified material, secret grand jury testimony, and information related to current federal investigations that must remain confidential. While the report says that it was not clear what the findings the Special Counsel's investigators viewed as troubling for the president, Barr's letter says that on the obstruction of justice matter, quote, the report sets out evidence on both sides of the question.
Next, following up on the White House whistleblower allegations that up to 25 people, most notably Jared Kushner and Ivanka Trump, had security clearances approved after first being denied, the Washington Post is reporting that Jared Kushner is senior White House official 1, whose security clearance was denied last year because of concerns about foreign influence, private business interests, and personal conduct in documents released during Tricia Newbold's testimony. But that's not all. The chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee formally requested that the IRS hand over 6 years of Donald Trump's personal and business tax returns.
Ways and Means Committee is where tax law gets written, which makes that a very powerful committee in Congress. Ways and Means also has oversight and jurisdiction over tax policy and taxes in general. And one of that committee's sort of superpowers is that the chairman of that committee is empowered by law to request and receive the tax return of any person in the United States. Tonight, the chair of that committee in the House has announced that he is exercising that power, and he is directing the IRS to turn over to him the last 6 years of President Donald Trump's tax returns. And his business tax returns, too.
The president was asked about it on Wednesday.
The chairman of the Democratic House Ways and Means Committee moments ago asked the IRS for 6 years of your tax returns. What are your...
Is that all?
That's all.
Oh, usually it's 10, so I guess they're giving up. Now, we're under audit, despite what people said, and we're working that out. As I'm always under audit, it seems, but I've been under audit for many years because the numbers are big, and I guess when you have a name, you're audited. But until such time as I'm not under audit, I would not be inclined to do that. Thank you.
I'm sure that by now someone has told him that it's not up to him. But wait, there's more. The House Intelligence Committee is seeking an interview with and documents from Stephanie Winston Wolkoff, a top organizer on Trump's inaugural committee, signaling that Congress is expanding its probe of how the fund raised and spent more than $100 million. Now, all of that happened after the House Judiciary Committee voted to subpoena the full Mueller report. In other news, Senate Republicans on Wednesday triggered the nuclear option, a change of rules to drastically reduce the amount of time needed to confirm hundreds of Trump's district court and sub-cabinet nominees. Debate on most nominations will now go from 30 hours down to 2, allowing Senate Republicans to hasten confirmation of Trump's picks. Republican Senators Susan Collins of Maine and Mike Lee of Utah voted with the Democrats against the rules change. Joe Biden on Wednesday finally addressed the controversy surrounding his propensity for touching people by releasing a video in which he vowed to be more mindful and respectful of people's personal space.
I'll always believe governing, quite frankly, life for that matter, is about connecting with people. That won't change. But I will be more mindful and respectful of people's personal space. And that's a good thing. That's a good thing. I've worked my whole life to empower women. I've worked my whole life to prevent abuse. I've written, and so the idea that I can adjust to the fact that personal space is important, more important than it's ever been, is just not thinkable. I will.
Critics have noted that while he said he gets it, the former vice president never actually apologized for his actions. And that's just a bit of what's news for now. I'm Nicole Sandler. If you appreciate these reports and the Nicole Sandler Show, I hope you'll consider making a contribution. My work is 100% listener supported, and I can't do it without your help. Find out more at NicoleSandler.com/donate.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays. We always begin weather from around the world along the banks of the Rogue River and the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 53 degrees Fahrenheit, expecting a high of 62 to 64. We are coming into spring here in the southern part of Oregon. We tend to be a bit warmer, But we are getting plenty of April showers, and I expect to see those May flowers. Winds are currently light and variable out of the northeast under cloudy conditions. Rain will be coming in copious amounts from the sky in about 2 hours. And that is when the winds will shift out of the south-southwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour, bringing with it a little less than a quarter inch of rain. Showers tonight bringing in about 1/10 of an inch. Lows in the low 50s. Winds out of the southeast tonight at 5 to 10 miles per hour. And then shifting once again out of the south-southwest tomorrow, bringing in a little bit more than a quarter inch of rain, with winds that have increased to 10 to 15 miles per hour. Grass pollen is rated at low, which means we do have some grass pollen, and my dear elderly mother has been hit by some sort of allergy, and including her dog, the little Yorkie Poo that we call Ginger. We love her, but she's been getting some sort of allergies as well. Don't know if it's food related or pollen, but she's being tested right now. That air quality index is good at 13 parts per million. Always good if you do not suffer from breathing problems. And the daytime UV index is in the cautionary moderate range at 5. Barometric pressure is falling at 29.7 inches. Visibility is at 5 miles. And relative humidity is at 93%. Weather from around the world is brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property. And these people positively live around the world. That's my pea tape, just letting you know, okay? Pop the peas or pop the peas. London is 48 and mostly cloudy. Paris is 53 and sunny. Rome is 59 and mostly cloudy. Kiev is 54 degrees and fair. Kabul is 64 and partly cloudy. Hong Kong, 68 and partly cloudy. Tokyo is 55 and clear. Sydney, Australia is 66 degrees and mostly cloudy. San Francisco, California is 52 degrees and cloudy with a small craft advisory on the bay and offshore. And New York, is 47 degrees Fahrenheit, sunny with a small craft advisory on the waterways that surround the Big Apple and the region. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted these purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property, and these people positively live around the world. Stefan Kalin of Reuters brings us this first amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Nearly a dozen prominent Saudi women activists returned to court yesterday, Wednesday, to face charges related to contacts with foreign journalists, diplomats, and human rights groups in a case that has intensified Western criticism of a major Mideast ally. Three of the women, blogger Iman Al-Nafjan, academic Aziza Al-Youssef, and conservative preacher Rakia Al-Morab, were temporarily released last week on condition they attend future hearings. They were seen entering Riyadh's criminal courthouse yesterday, and sources familiar with the proceedings told Reuters the three-judge panel adjourned their hearings until after the holy month of Ramadan, which ends in early June. The court had not been expected to rule on release requests for the other women, but the sources said no decision was announced, and their next hearing was set for April 17th. The reason for the separate dates was unclear. In court on Wednesday, the public prosecutor replied to defenses the women had presented previously. Few charges have been made public, but the brother of defendant Lujan Al-Huthal has said that those against her include communicating with journalists, applying for a job at the UN, and attending digital privacy training. Yeah, talk about it. Handmaid's Tale. Oh my God. And you know what? We want to give them nuclear power so they can make plutonium, so they can make weapons, so that, I don't know, Netanyahu and the Arabs can have a pact to keep a war going on for what? Yeah, we know. Instability really brings in the profits. Western diplomats and media, including Reuters, have been denied entry to the trial, which has drawn attention to the rights record already in the spotlight after the murder last year of journalist Jamal Khashoggi inside the kingdom's Istanbul consulate. 36 countries, including all 28 EU members, Canada, and Australia have called on Riyadh to free the activists. British Foreign Secretary Jeremy Hunt and U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo raised the issue during recent visits. Most of the women on trial were arrested weeks before a ban on women driving cars in the conservative kingdom was lifted last June, and at least 5 men were detained in the same sweep, though none of them are currently on trial. Rights groups say 2 of them have been released, but the status of the others remains unclear. Dozens of other activists, intellectuals, and clerics have been arrested separately in the past 2 years in an apparent bid to stamp out opposition to the government. And my only question is, what did Jared give them, and when did he give it?
Je te donne ce mon amour pour la vie entière. La promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle. C'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer, mes automnes quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers, c'est tout.
Patricia Zengurli and Doina Chiachu of Reuters brings us this final amuse-bouche here in the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays. The head of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization warned the U.S. Congress yesterday, Wednesday, of the threat posed by a more assertive Russia, including massive military buildup, threats to sovereign states, the use of nerve agents, and cyber attacks. We must overcome our differences now because we will need our alliance even more in the future. We face unprecedented challenges no one nation could face alone, NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg said. Saying time is running out, Stoltenberg also called on Russia to return to compliance with the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty, from which U.S. selected president, by the way, Donald Trump, plans to withdraw the U.S. this summer. NATO has no intention of deploying land-based nuclear missiles in Europe, Stoltenberg said, but NATO will always take the necessary steps to provide credible and effective deterrence. Members of Congress who greeted Stoltenberg with repeated cheers and standing ovations said they viewed his address to the joint meeting of the House of Reps and Senate as a chance to reaffirm the American commitment to the NATO alliance, which Trump and Vlad are intent on destroying. And who does it benefit? Well, you know, contracts will be written in Cyrillic if we're not careful. Stoltenberg met on Tuesday with Trump, who said his pressure on NATO nations to pay more for their defense is leading to tens of billions of dollars more in contributions, but the allies may need to boost their budgets even more. Stoltenberg said NATO member countries are adding billions to their defenses, spending over $41 billion in the last 2 years, and he expects that figure to rise to $100 billion next year. This is making NATO stronger, he said. This is good for Europe, and it is good for America. Which means that Trump's going to try to get rid of it because it's not really good for Russia. And that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day, and you know that Netroots Radio will be broadcasting on. We're going to meet up tomorrow for Blue Moon Spirits Fridays, and don't we deserve those French 77s, indeed. So stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day and all night for all the breaking news as it breaks, and we'll meet up here tomorrow, right here in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théâtres, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. À fleurs sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair. T'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver.